Hello student, today we are going to take a very important topic, that is effect of cooking and food processing. Now this is a very important topic because most of the questions come from this topic, and so you should be learning very in detail all the things which I'll talk in this topic. So first we'll talk about what is food processing. Now this is a set of methods and techniques used to transform a raw ingredient. Raw ingredient means what? It is a harvested crop or slaughtered or butchered animal products. Now you can't consume this raw ingredient in the same form. So you had to transform it into a product for consumption. Okay, so whenever we go with any of the food preparation process, there is a reduction of nutrients. And why it is where there is reduction in the nutrients? Because we are adding high level of heat, oxygen or light, which causes this greatest loss. So whenever we are taking the food, when it's subjected to the action of heat, in the process of cooking, we are actually reducing the nutrient contents. So in our previous topics, we had talked about different ways, what are the physical and chemical changes we add on in our food, which actually changes the nutrient content and the amount of the nutrients also. So we'll talk about first what are the changes which happens during the food preparation. Now I have taken two changes which occurs during food preparation, which is physical change and chemical change. Now when we talk about the physical change, that means what? It is changing the outer portion of the food content, but it is not changing any of the nutrient content of that food. But when we talk about the chemical changes, that means you are changing the nature of the food and nature of the nutrients also, and the amount of the nutrients. So there's a vast difference between physical changes and the chemical change. So let's talk about the first thing, which is physical change. Now when we talk about the physical change, it means there's an increase or decrease in the size. If you soak the dried fruits, you are increasing the size. Thickening. If you are whipping the cream, you are thickening the content of that cream. Then there is a loss of nutrients. For example, water soluble vitamins. When we dissolve in water, whenever we dissolve any food in the water, you are reducing the water soluble vitamins. And also tenderizing the meat is also reducing the changing the different nutrients, and it is basically changing the size of it. Okay, so next is the chemical changes. So chemical changes means what? You are changing the color because of the enzymatic browning reaction. You are reducing the nutrient loss. For example, if there is an oxidative stress or oxidative destruction, you are destroying the vitamin C. And if you are tenderizing the meat, you are using what? Proteolytic enzymes, which tenderizes the meat fibers. Okay, and there's also a physical chemical change in the size also. Like if you add dough, if you add the yeast in the dough expands because there is the enzymes makes carbon dioxide, so the dough ferment and it raises. So that means that the amount of the ingredients have been increased. So increasing the size, and this is done because of the yeast in the dough. So now what are the changes which happens during your cooking of food? What we were talking about, it was the food processing, and now we are talking about what happens when we cook the food. So again we'll take two parts, two changes, that is physical change and the chemical change. And what are the things? In the physical changes, we can see the texture changes. That means the cells, all the cell walls softens in the vegetable when we cook it. The bacteria are killed. The nutrients loss is there because some of the vitamins and minerals are dissolved in the cooking liquids. Now when we talk about the eggs, it solidifies when we cook it. Why? Because the protein coagulates. Food thickens when we generalize the starches. When we cook the food, the proteins shrink. That means it coagulates and shrinks, especially in the meat and most of the animal products, because they are a very good source of proteins. When we talk about the chemical changes while cooking, so what happens? The first reaction which we'll talk is the Maillard reaction. Maillard reaction is what? We already have talked about this reaction. When amino acids and carbohydrates are heated together, what happens? The food turns brown. You can see when we cook the milk for a very long time, because then the carbohydrates and the amino acids, they heat up and the color of the milk turns brown, which mostly we talk about Khoa. Then is the caramelization. When they heat the sugars above a dissolving point, when we heat the sugar, it dissolves. First it turns into liquid, and then after few hours, after few minutes, when we heat it, continuously heat it, then what happens? Caramelization occurs. What it is? It is the brown color of that sugar. Generally, it is made for making toffees. Next is the dextrinization. That means a long starch chain breaks into shorter chains, and this is called dextrin. The dextrin formation means that the process of making dextrin is dextrinization. You can see a brown color dextrin around your bread or on the top of the cake when it is baked. So this is called dextrin. So there are physical changes and the chemical changes while food processing also, and while also cooking the food. So what are the reasons for cooking the food? The first very most important point to be noted is we cook to destroy the pathogenic bacteria, and in that way we are making that food safer to consume. It also destroys the enzymes, and also when we destroy those enzymes, the food spoilage is being prevented. Then to make the food palatable, definitely you can't eat each and every food in a raw form. So you have to make it palatable and also digestible. Okay. Then these are the things mostly in the starchy foods like potatoes. When we cook, we actually improve the appearance, like in the case of meat. We develop a flavor so that we can eat the food nicely and consume it more. Whenever we cook the food, we are stimulating most of the digestive juices. And basically how it happens, how it stimulates your digestive juices, when we smell, when we see a beautiful colored nicely cooked food on the palate, on the plate, your digestive enzyme starts stimulating, and it will going to help you out to digest that food nicely. It also destroys the natural toxins, especially, for example, you can see in the red kidney beans, there are various toxins which are being destroyed when we cook it, and to combine the different ingredients to form a new flavor. So whenever we add